It's been quite a long time now since we've looked at our blueberries, and now we're going to have a look at feeding them, giving them a little bit of maintenance, and quickly talk about some trimming and cutting back as well. This is part 4 of our blueberry grow along, but if you haven't joined in yet, then blueberries can be purchased at pretty much any point in the year, and it's a great time now to get them established and potted up in order to have some fruit next year. So I have 4 blueberries in total. I've got this one, which is the Patriot variety. This is the one that I actually purchased for the grow alongs. And I also ended up with another one, which is back here, which is called Ruble, which was sent in correctly. And then I've got 2 more established plants that are in very large planters. So today we're going to have a look at getting them top dressed, and this is really important that we do use our ericaceous compost for this, not just usual compost. They need an acidity level that's correct for these plants, or they're just not going to do very well. We've also got some weeds in the pots that we need to look at and deal with, so we're going to have a look at that. And then we're just going to very quickly talk about pruning them. These are very young plants, so the amount of pruning on these is going to be next to nothing, but we will talk about that as well later on with the larger bushes. So the first thing we're going to do is start to remove any weeds that are in the pots or in the ground around these, and you do want to also top dress any plants that are in the ground if you are in an area where they are suitable to be in the ground. This is going to make sure that they've got plenty of food and going to keep them strong for when they start flowering next year. So the very first thing I'm actually going to look at doing for this, and I was hoping it would come out in a larger root ball, but it's not, is actually adding some more compost to the bottom of these pots. I don't want to add all the compost onto the top of the pot and bury this plant too deep. So I will be lifting these, and the root ball's actually not got very established within the pot, so I'm going to just do this from here. But if they were more established, then just lift the entire root ball. If you've got a more mature plant, then you may need to have a larger pot and make sure that you do keep potting it up so it has more fresh compost in there and more ability to hold those roots. I'm just going to push this compost at the side and make space for this root ball again. And then we'll take this bush and just replant it a little bit higher. Blueberries are quite hardy, so there should be no need to actually protect these from frost in the UK. Just give it a little bit of a press down. We don't want it too pressed down, but we do want it nice and firm. We can see here that this thicker bit of wood here is the oldest part of the blueberry, and then these thinner branches that are along the side of it are the younger shoots. And then further up we've also got some that are not producing anymore, or that part of the plant has died off. So for these very young plants, we are going to look today at removing any dead or diseased areas, and then the rest of the plant is going to be left until it's a little bit more mature before we look at actually removing whole stems. So just take any dead or dying shoots back down. And you will also see that there might be some areas like here where this is crossing. So I'm going to remove that one because we don't want it rubbing too much. And then I've got the same over here. So take this down a little bit. Oh, that came off. And then here as well. So we're just thinking about keeping this plant from not being too condensed and making sure that it's not going to be rubbing too much on the plant beside it, the branches. The only other one I've got rubbing is this part here, so I'm going to take this one down and help that one be a little bit more open. Got here that's died off. Depending on the variety that you've got, you may also find that you've got lots of leaves still on your plant. So I've got one of my free plant still is completely covered in leaves. So for that one, I would be looking at doing this later. We can start looking at pruning these back anytime between now and February, really. So we will look at in more detail in February at the more mature plant that I've got. So when you've got an area like this, so this isn't looking very healthy at the top, but there's a little bud here. So we're just going to take it off next to that bud. I'm happy with that. So that's all that's going to happen with this, and these are going to go back outside now to continue growing, and they'll start putting on buds before we know it. And then we got this one, which is a variety called Ruble. This is the one that arrived and was not the one I'd actually ordered. So it's a larger blueberry bush that wasn't necessarily going to be as appropriate for growing in pots. There we go. So that's that blueberry potted up with some extra compost. If I was, however, going to put these in a larger pot and they'd run out of room in this one, I'd be looking at least sort of 2 to 3 inches larger all around to make sure that it's got plenty of room to grow. When we're testing whether or not the actual stem is still alive is just to bend it. If it bends easily rather than breaks, then it's still alive. But as you can see, that one just broke straight off. And then the ones on this plant that are still alive are the ones that are going directly towards the other part of the plant. So I don't really want them going in that direction. I'm going to leave the back one on because that's not actually touching anything, and I'm going to take this one here off. You do want to make sure that you don't leave any of the stems that you remove on the plant pot, just in case there is any issues with any disease going on here. That's given us a much more open network now for this bush not to be rubbing against each other and to produce fruit over the next years as well. This is my other 2 blueberry bushes. So this one is slightly younger, and then this one here you can see is in full leaf still, is much older than the other one. And you can see there's lots of mature branches down here, so we'll be looking at trimming these back. But we do want to wait for these leaves to be gone and for it to be over in a wintered stage more before we do look at starting to trim this one. It's just going to be easier to be able to see what's what and which of these buds are flower buds and which of them are just leaf buds. And then I also do need to help it with the structure and make sure it's not crossing as much. It will be this bush's first proper trim. For today, however, all I'm going to be looking at doing is removing any weeds that are in here, and you can see this is from leftover from the Christmas tree that we had last year. And then I'll be also adding a layer of ericaceous compost as a good mulch. So if yours are in the ground, that's exactly what you'll be looking at doing as well today. And we want around a 1 to 2 inch mulch ideally to give them plenty of food over winter. So that's these 2 bushes now all topped with compost. I have run out of compost just for that back corner there. I'll have to pick some up at some point, but that should be absolutely fine. I am going to pop the net back over. They don't need a net at this time of the year, but it is just easier to keep this one on rather than take it off. We'll be expecting to look at pruning the more mature bushes around February. So if you do have some more mature bushes, then do join us for that information a little bit into the new year.